Welcome, Jill. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening. It's been an absolutely wonderful journey that you and I have had for the better part of more than a year now. And along this journey, I think you have definitely grown, but you've also allowed all of us here at Autonomic Coaching to grow in ways in which we never would have expected through the strength of your character and what you've been able to do, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones and those around you by creating inspiration through your journey. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And I just would like to start off for those who don't know you, that are going to be watching this video and might be looking toward or looking for inspiration where they're feeling a little bit lost, where they're feeling a little bit helpless and hopeless. You might just to give our audience just a little bit of who you are, a background of where you've come from, what you've done, and who Jill is. Who is Jill Bartlett?
Oh, Jill Bartlett is a 63-year-old Australian lady, mother of 3 children, who has always been big. I was an overweight child, and that progressed through my whole life, really, and it just gradually crept on and crept on. And after each baby that I had, the weight didn't go, it just stayed. And over the journey of, I think I've been on every diet known to man. Uh, I was always a big child, a big adolescent. I always had issues finding clothes, feeling comfortable about myself. Um, Probably stunted a little bit socially as an adolescent because of feeling big and not worthy. And I guess by the time I got to my 60s, I had become a bit of a fatalist, really. I'd been accepting of who I was as a big person because I didn't really know how to be thin. I didn't know how it felt. I didn't know how to get there. And I just assumed that I would always be this way.
Well, that assumption was completely obliterated. And we're here today to give an indication as to how you were able to create a change in that narrative. That narrative of which, was born from a very young age, and that through your own decision and choice, that you decided to find the help needed in order to sharpen you toward being the best version of yourself possible. So, with that being said, the first question I would like to ask you, Joe, is what were the pressures you were holding on to, afraid to let go of?
Um, I guess it was a fear of the unknown. Um, as I said before, I didn't know how to be thin. I had never experienced it. I'd certainly experienced the lows. There are very few highs when you're obese. And it was something that was feeling thin was something that was going to be quite foreign to me. I had, because of my size and the amount of time that I'd carried weight, I had a terrible self-talk. There was a lot of self-loathing. I never felt nice when I went out. I didn't feel comfortable when I got dressed to go out. Even though friends would say that I always looked lovely and I always looked beautiful, I never physically felt that way. I was always my own worst critic. And because I was overweight, I felt that I was a failure.
And I think the sad thing about that is so many people feel that way inside.
Mm-hmm.
And because they never verbalize it, because they feel too ashamed to talk about it, they implode and becomes a pressure cooker. pressure cooker of self-destruction where we start to do things to escape that pressure and that reality. For some, it's eating things that are unhealthy. For others, it's having unhealthy activities. And for others, it's taking drugs or having multiple sex partners, whatever it is, in order to escape the unwanted reality. But I'm really proud of you, Jill, because just in acknowledging, the pains that you are going through, understanding those limitations is such a huge step because that's taking responsibility. That's taking responsibility. And when people say taking responsibility, it's they often have this negative connotation to the word responsibility. It's not about that. Responsibility doesn't mean that you need to take on the weight of it and hold on to it. It means you acknowledge it, but you seek solution. You figure out a resolution to change things. And that's brings me to the next question. Um, what was your breaking point that brought you to autonomic coaching?
Well, I was referred to you from a lady I was doing some mind coach work with because I was always open to trying to get to the bottom of the issues that I had. I was always open to seeking other answers, but I hadn't actually ever really found anyone that resonated. And I found Bianca Robertson in Australia, and I was doing some work with her, and she opened my mind to possibilities, and she also opened my mind to um, changing my mindset on self-loathing and being kind to myself. And after a couple of months, she suggested that she knew you, she'd met you, she'd worked with you, and she felt that I would do very well working with you, and would I be interested? And I said yes. And she said, well, I'll pass on your details to Justin. And I received a phone call from Justin in South Africa the next day.
I remember that
And
phone.
we talked about, or you told me about the program. We talked, and I kind of felt a connection, and I felt that it was right to move forward with this. So I and that it was, and I think I've said it to both you and Bianca before, Justin, it was previously with all the programs that I'd done, I always felt that the people that were helping me were adversaries. They were always there to look for faults and to shame me because I didn't lose a kilo this week or I ate something that week. Whereas um, Bianca said to me, and you certainly did, we're all on Team Jill. And that just resonated with me, that I had a team that were my team. They were working with me to help me achieve what I needed to. And that whole mindset changed, thinking that I had people that were there for me.
That is an absolutely wonderful answer. And it actually ties into the next question. And it's a powerful moment when this happens. When did you realize you could overcome your limitations?
I think I've said to you before, I didn't have this huge light globe moment specifically. I was a slow burn. I had 60 plus years of not being confident with who I am, and not being confident that I could complete something and be successful at something. So I was a real slow burn. And what I liked about the program was that for the first month, nothing changed. It was around just getting me active and just understanding what it was that I was eating. And one of the conversations that we had was that I'm not the food police.
Mhm.
I'm not going to berate you for what you're eating. I just need to understand so I can interpret how your body is reacting to these foods. And that was a bit of an eye opener for me. And I can remember with when you set me a step target, and it was 5,000 steps.
Yep.
And I can remember thinking, oh my goodness, 5,000 steps. So I embarked on my step journey. And I can, as you're sort of walking along, I can remember looking down and seeing my feet. And whereas I used to avoid exercise and my self-talk was negative, it was around, how do I get out of this? And I don't really want to do this. And it's too wet and it's too cold, or it's too hot, or it's too windy. I'll do it later.
Mm.
I just looked down at my feet and I looked and I thought, each step I take, it's hard work, but it gets me closer to where I want to go. So that was my slow burn.
I think what's so wonderful about what you've just described, it actually personifies in a wonderful analogy about moving forward in life. Is that in order to move forward in life, we have to take one step at a time.
Mhm.
And if we look too far ahead, we fumble. And if we look behind us, we get stuck and we don't keep on moving. And I remember distinctly for many a month, that would be your motto. Just one step at a time.
Yep.
And it's every step that you've taken that's gotten you to the point now that I think you do. How long, about what time of the day do you normally finish 10,000 steps now?
7:30 in the morning.
So from having started by barely being able to, or not barely being able to, but by struggling to finish 5,000 steps in a day, you now finish 10,000 steps before 7:30 a.m.
Mhm.
Julia, we
And
spoke about this in the past.
mhm.
The objective is to get you to do a half marathon this year, of which I intend to be in Australia to root you on
Mhm.
with my cheerleading pom poms and all.
I can't wait to see them.
I'll tell you what, 125-kilogram man with pom
Yep.
poms.
Yep.
Everyone's going to be routing for you by the end of that.
Nearly worth the effort.
And now, you do some days you've done almost 28,000 steps, just shy of it,
Mhm.
right? Um, we were
And
just
the other
speaking.
thing that I have found, Justin, is that I now look forward to getting out of bed in the morning, and I look forward to seeing the sunrise. And every day I get out on the road and it's dark, and I look and think, I could have missed this if I was still in bed.
uh,
And the autumn here in Australia, the sunrises are just beautiful. And it just starts the day. And I take my phone with me, and sometimes there's the most amazing sunrises and sometimes there's not. But I do find myself, it's not an issue to get out of bed, where before it was a huge issue to get out of bed. I always found excuses why I shouldn't. But now, I wake up at about 5:30. I do all my observations and send them off to you guys. And then I get dressed and my husband and I go and walk.
what's so beautiful about that, Joel, is it actually reminds me of an excerpt from the Bible. And that excerpt I'm talking about is those, and I'm paraphrasing now, it's not the direct translation, but those that try to fill themselves through the world always go to bed hungry. Those who fill themselves with God go to bed full every night. So the reason why I bring this up is the way in which I can equate to what you've just described is we can often get caught up in our own minds, and our own minds' ideas are often the outcome of worldly ideas of what we should be like and how we should look, how we should think, how we should act. We should always be positive. Being depressed is a sign of weakness, and all these absolute false narratives that we're taught. And what I've seen, what you've done, is that you've taken yourself out of the world and the ideas of the world, and you've put yourself into the world of God, the world that God created. Because by being able to cherish and experience a sunrise and having gratitude for something as beautiful, beautifully simple, yet complex in every possible way that allows for life to exist, you are no longer being fed by the world. You're being fed by something that's much greater. And that is your connection with divinity. That is the fact that you are a manifestation of God through God, because you are one of his children and one of his creations. And I just think that that's absolutely beautiful, that you were able to get to that point to experience the subtleties, because it's in the subtleties that there's so much wonder. My
And
next question.
there's so much more wonder in the world if you just step out of your comfort zone. As I said, we have a Facebook group in the estate that I live in, and I often post photos of the sunrise just in case you missed it. And the number of people that go, I had no idea it even looked like that. Oh, sorry, we slept in and missed it. And it is a really lovely feeling to know that I've seen it, because I was out there.
How much more of life are you now experiencing, Joel?
A lot. And my mind and my body is a lot more attuned to the world than it was. And it's in tune with enjoyment rather than self-loathing and being miserable. And it's just the small things.
And that's exactly it, is that we often look for the big gestures, right? The big solutions. And actually, it's in the small things that we do that the big solutions manifest. Because it doesn't, poor health doesn't happen overnight, but neither does good health.
Yeah.
And both of them are shifted in either direction based on taking the subtle decisions to embrace life every day. And I think that you've done that so well. I remember distinctly conversations where you went to your grandson's recital and us having conversations and how you now are able to be more present with your family and experiencing all the things that they go through without feeling trapped within yourself. And
the most amazing conversation, and I think I shared it with you the other week, my grandson, who is 8, and he's a very empathetic little guy, and he came for a sleepover, and he's been very very interested in my journey with weight loss, because he's seen various stages and how many steps have you done today, Graham? And he said to me the other night, so Graham, how much longer are you on a diet? And I said, darling, I'm not on a diet. I'm eating healthy. And he said, how much weight have you lost now? And I said, 61 kilos. And he went, oh. So we have a puppy at the moment who is 5 months old and who was 15 kilos. And so I said to my grandson, just imagine, darling, Grammy had 4 Henrys on her back every day. For everything she did, she carried 4 Henrys on her back. And he went, oh, really? Or I said, I would be piggybacking you and half of your sister around with me every day, and I'm not doing that now.
And that's where you
And
have more energy.
that's it. And I said, and I think you could probably get your arms around me now. And he said, can I try? And I got a huge big hug and the most amazing feeling from the fact that my grandson could get his arms around me.
Oh, wow.
His love for me doesn't change. He loved me when I was big. He loves me now. But the feeling of him being able to get his arms around me was so worth it.
Oh,
It's so worth the effort.
yeah. Love, isn't it such a powerful thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a powerful thing to know that the ones you love are
Mm-hmm.
healthy and that you can get to experience them for so many more years.
And you said that to me, Justin. You said to me on one of our conversations that we had a discussion about my grandson, and he's a very sweet, empathetic boy. And your comment to me was that you can't leave this world until he's an adult. You can't leave him behind having to deal with losing you. And that resonated with me again. And I thought, no, I can't, because I could imagine how upset he would be and how much his life would change. So that's driven me along as well, is the fact that I can be here for longer and
Yes.
I can be involved in their life far more than had I stayed stuck inside my overweight body.
You know what, Jill, what's so beautiful about that is that we are very much to the mercy of the outcome of our upbringing. And so many of us have had traumatic upbringings, and that led us into self destructive pathways, feelings of being inadequate, not enough, wanting to try to change who we are, not realizing that we were always perfect all along. And for you to be able to be here and for him to be such a gentle soul, and we've discussed how empathetic he is naturally. He's an empathetic young man, young boy that will be a young man one day. And in this world, it's so important that we nurture people like this. Because if we don't, the world will snuff their light out or try to snuff their light out and try to create darkness in them. And the decisions that you've made, the decisions you've taken, the actions you've taken have not only changed your life, but have changed generations of your family. And that's what I want to really bring it to. You know, we talk in those of who are listening to this video that are Christians will know about the concept of bloodline curses and how we can break those bloodline curses when we embrace love. And that love can be embraced by Christ consciousness. And I truly believe that you have completely embraced Christ consciousness within yourself. Because just as Jesus basically stated to the prostitutes, the cripples, the beggars on the streets, their worth, and in their belief of him, they were able to rise when they couldn't walk. They were able to give up their evil ways and turn to good, not because they were ridiculed, not because they were scolded and made to feel bad, but because they were able to see that they were everything that they could ever be. And in knowing that, the opportunities that they actually had in life to embrace and to feel love. And that's the most powerful catalyst of emotion. And you've given that to your family. You have enabled your family to break a bloodline curse that may have gone on if you weren't around. But now that you're going to be around, you're there to boost his self confidence when the world tries to say it's not okay to be sensitive because you're a man. It is okay, it's needed. So I think not only do we applaud you, and you know how much I love you as a friend, not just as a client, but as a family member. And you are very much a part of this family. But I think that it transcends that from your family and all the people that your family members are going to touch now. Such a catalyst is going to come from this. And it all stemmed from love. But that love had to come from one place first. It had to come from you starting to love yourself.
Mhm.
So when we asked that question before, and I'm just going to scroll up because I've got a good memory, but I can't always remember all the questions off heart. That question, when did you realize you can overcome your limitations? If I were to answer that question for you, I distinctly remember the moment. The moment was I was down at the coast, and you'd asked me, "Oh, what are you going to have to eat? What are all the naughty things you're going to eat while you're down there?"
No, you put off our call.
Yes,
You spoke to me and you said, "Can we talk in 10 minutes? I'm away for the weekend. I'm staying at a resort, and I'm going to buy food because I'm not putting that shit in my body."
that's right.
And that was fairly early in the piece, and it does resonate with me because I thought, oh my God, here's this person who makes an effort when he's away and he's working, but he's not prepared to accept what's available immediately for him. He's prepared to go and get something that's better.
And I remember right after that moment,
Mm.
there's something within yourself that shifted when I think you saw that, you know what, if Justin can have that belief over himself, so can I. And that's where that saying iron sharpens iron. And don't get me wrong, Jill, I mean, we all go through our ups and downs. Hey, there's to try and think that we're always going to be consistently good and we're never going to fall off and have something wrong in life. That's just crazy because we're human and we have to fall sometimes to be able to get up stronger each time. But the difference is when we get up now, especially when we're surrounded with a community of people that really care and they're authentic, they're okay to tell you the things that you don't necessarily want to hear, but in a way in which it's actually helpful. Um, that's how I know we'll continue to grow. And that's how I know the love for yourself was manifested. And that's why you like the love that you give to everybody else now, this radiates. I asked Sonia to be here on this call with us today. And normally it's a little bit unorthodox because I wouldn't normally have somebody else within a storytelling session, but the reason why I wanted Sonia to be here, Sonia is a big sister to me. She's the glue of our business. She does a lot of the administrative roles, and she allows us to be able to create our skill and to deliver our skill to the best of our ability by enabling the structure to be there. But along this journey, it's a big task. It's a big role to have to manage. And Sonia had initially gained a little bit of weight and was despondent in the fact that she had gained weight. And this is why everybody needs something different. Because although I helped you, Jill, and I helped many others, I wasn't the catalyst to Sonia's losing weight. Sonia, would you mind just to dive in here and just to explain to the audience how one person's transformation in character, in heart, not just through science, but through heart, enabled you to lose how many kilos have you lost now since you had before you answer that question, before you had spoken to Jill, were you losing weight? And after you've spoken to Jill, what was the outcome?
So for me, I obviously watched Joel's journey, and I think I remember asking you one day, would you be okay if I spoke to Joel? And you said, of course. And I asked Jill if she would be okay to speak to me. And I remember her speaking to me the very same day. And I wasn't in a place where I was motivated to lose weight, or I didn't feel understood either. Um, because you, like you say, you know, you connect to different people in different ways. And after my conversation with Jill, I felt that she understood what it is like to have all these pains of not being able to get in the bath and then stir the water, whatever the things are that really frustrates you about weight. And I remember she said it starts with loving yourself. But then she also gave me a lot of things that made her journey, that she picked up along her journey, that little gems, maybe, if I call it that. And I applied that. And it wasn't as though I've done it strictly. I haven't been flogging myself about any wrongs either. But I have managed to lose 13 kilos so far. And I remember the day after I spoke to Jill, or maybe that week, trying to exercise, and I let her know that I fainted on my stoop after maybe, I don't know, 7 minutes of training. And I'm able to go with my son to boxing now for an hour and a half, where we train and run and box. And it started with Jill, just understanding me and giving me a direction to say, this is love, and this is how love works, and this is how it looks, and this is what you do when you don't love yourself today. Yes.
Thank you, Sonia. Just before you go, Sonia, the changes that you've now made in yourself, and I know that you have your own community of other women that are also struggling with weight, also struggling with self-confidence. Tell me, what changes have you seen in them now that they've heard your story?
So I think initially it's an interest of what exactly are you doing, and everybody question is the same: what do you eat? But and I think that's when you bring it back to, it's never quite what you eat, is it? It's about how you see yourself. It's about how you love yourself. And the biggest thing is to know that, I can go with my son and enjoy this. I have something I can do with him. That is something I know he loves. And I know I'm the oldest person at the boxing gym, and I'm quite proud of that. I'm happy that it, and it makes me happy. So yes, they ask me. There's younger women there, and they ask me what's going on. And sorry for the word, but my coach pulled me aside last week, and he said, I don't want to tell you look shit before, but you really look good now. You're really starting to look good. And that also made me really happy, because it's not just the people who see it, but they see self-love. They don't really, if I can get people to get where Jill got me, to just start respecting and loving yourself first, then it's less about exactly what are you eating.
Thank you, Sonia. Joel, the reason why I brought this up now is because you're such a modest woman, and I'm jumping the queue and the questions.
Mhm,
We'll get back to the other ones.
mhm.
And the reason why I brought this in, why I wanted Sonia to be present, is that I just want you to realize that you are a hero. This is the proof. This is one life that are touching many other lives, of the thousands, if not millions, of lives that your story will enable and help. But the question I want to ask you, and I know you're going to be modest in this answer, when did you finally acknowledge yourself to be a hero?
Well, as I've said to you before, Justin, it's not easy. for me to acknowledge being a hero. Because as I've said to you, all I'm doing is I'm following what you've told me. And with the help and the support with yourself, with Sonia, with Marinus, and certainly with work with Fiona, I've come to appreciate and love myself and realize that I am enough. And I guess I can very quietly acknowledge that I've been successful. I do struggle with the word hero. But then I guess the connotation is my view of a hero is someone who goes into battle and comes out victorious. And I don't see myself quite like that. But I guess if you break it down, I guess I've gone into battle with myself and I have had a victory. And I continue to have a victory every day.
You know, that reminds me of a saying from Les Brown. And its saying is, if there is no enemy within, and the enemy without can do you no harm.
Mm.
So what you've done right there is you've overcome your worst adversary, all of our worst adversaries, and that's ourselves.
Yes.
So you are a hero. You've gone into battle in the most darkest battle that anybody could ever confront. And that's to look within yourself and to say, no, this is not who I am. This is who I did choose to be. You are a hero, Joel.
Thank
And
you.
I want you just to know that. You're a hero to you. You're
and
welcome.
thank you, Tanya, as well.
Oh,
As
yes.
I said, I just keep doing what you tell me. There's nothing heroic in that.
It's not in the things that it's not in the tasks that you do, it's in how you do them. That's heroic. The energy that you put to completing those tasks. Anyone can work hard, but not everybody can be successful. And the difference between success isn't the volume of work that you do, but the way in which you approach the work that you have the opportunity and the blessing to do. You're taking something from being a hindrance, from being a chore, and created an opportunity and a blessing out of it. And that's what makes you a hero.
And everyone else can be a hero. They can be their own hero.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I truly believe this as well.
Yeah. And with your help, everyone can be a hero.
Well, I tell you what, Jill, iron sharpens iron. And if it hadn't been for people like yourself, I wouldn't be in this position here to be able to help others. So along this journey that we've had over the last year, you've sharpened my resolve to a whole new paradigm as well. And this is where the connection is so important within humanity to understand that healing, it doesn't come just from the science.
No.
It doesn't just come from the science of biomedicine or bloods or whatever it might be, or from exercise, but it comes from a combination of the heart and science itself. So it brings me to going back. I'm going to backtrack here. Let me see where I am here. How did autonomic coaching support you in your journey?
I think, as we've discussed before, is the fact that my program is my program. It's not a universal program that everybody does, that everyone follows the same path that I follow. This is based on science, on blood results, on me as a person, and the daily monitoring, the constant feedback, the alterations and tweaks as you get my results each day, as you interpret how my body's responding to what you've set me to do. that's how you've helped me. And at times where I've been down and I've doubted myself, and I don't want people to believe that my journey's been full of rainbows,
Mm.
because along the journey I've hit potholes, I've doubted myself, I've got angry with myself, may have eaten the wrong things and self-sabotaged myself for a day because
Mm.
things weren't going how I wanted them to go.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was trying to beat my body into submission because I wanted it to do this and it just wasn't happening. So it's really important that people understand that when someone is put up as an icon or a hero, that their journey has been threaded with potholes, that it wasn't always the most wonderful experience because there's so much self-discovery that you have to do along the way. But every step is worthwhile because you learn something more about yourself. You understand more about yourself. And I know when I've been down, you've always been there for me. You always say I'm only a message away, and you do respond. All of your team respond, and that's been a huge catalyst for my ongoing commitment to the program.
Well,
Um,
Joel,
is the fact that you just reach out and someone's there for you.
like I said to you before, you started out as a client, now you became a family member.
Thank you.
You are a part of our family. And as a family, and I said this to Reza, who's also now a friend of mine, started out as a client, the same thing. As a family, we stand together. No one gets left behind, and no one gets left lying on the floor. We pick each other up, and they will always be there no matter what.
Mm.
What belief do you now have in your potential?
Well, because of the fact that I can now acknowledge myself and my success, that my potential is unlimited. Maybe the only limitations are what I put on myself. Um, I even took a backward step when you suggested that I would do a half marathon. That's a limitation.
I'm going to be there for that. I'm going to
Yeah.
be there for that. That's what we said before this year is done. We
Mhm.
are going to get you to a half marathon. I'll be in Australia rooting for you with pom poms.
I know. No.
125-kilogram man and pom poms.
Yep.
Everyone's rooting for you by the end of
And I'm
that.
going to take a photo and put it online.
Oh, you more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I will have a proud moment in you exhibiting that. My support for you transcends any form of embarrassment because it's not an embarrassment. It is only a pure, absolute, pure admiration for
Thank
what
you.
you've done. How do you now address the pressure points in your life?
Um, I now have a self-belief that didn't exist before. And that's kind of come through resilience and just day to day adhering to what I need to do, um, but also by putting up boundaries. Being a mum, you often feel that everyone else's needs come before your own, and
Yes.
it's your job to make sure that everybody else is right. And by doing that, you often compromise who you are and your time and your energy. So I still love my family and I still do lots for my family, but I still do have some boundaries, and I do just draw a line where I need to at certain times to make sure that I can still do things that I want to do for me. Um,
I think
and
it's so
also,
important, Joe. I think that's
yeah,
so, what you're saying there, I think is so important for so many women to hear. Um, I know, in my past, I wasn't the person who I am today. And if it hadn't been for for the fact that my mother, my ex-wife at the time, hadn't taken a stance against my poor behavior, I wouldn't be able to be the catalyst to make the change for people like I do today. And that's exactly what you've done, is the fact that you've decided to show your self-love by putting limitations and boundaries in place actually allows all those people that were ever, I hate the word, but abusing, which is the reality of a situation, your kindness, are now being empowered by not being able to do that any longer. And it's so very important, because this is the reason why we get, there's two ways that I know people fall off the wagon, as per se. And one way is self-sacrifice, and the other one is self-sabotage. And sometimes one feeds the other.
Mhm.
So it's very important that when you are on a journey of self-discovery, that you form those boundaries to allow you to love yourself first before you love others. Because if you can't love yourself first, the love that you're able to give is always going to have come from a cup that's half empty.
Mhm.
So congratulations on that, because that's a huge accomplishment that a lot of women can take a lesson from and say, I need to love myself first before I can give you the support you need.
Mhm.
Right?
And it's not about neglecting or being nasty about it at all.
No.
It's about pre- preserving who you are and not losing your identity with everybody else.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have been able to acknowledge and I've learned is learning that I'm enough.
Yes.
And that's been an amazing revelation for me, because I never felt good enough. I was never pretty enough. I was never thin enough. I was never accomplished enough. I felt, and it's been lifting for me to be able to acknowledge that I am enough and I am a valuable person and I can do things.
You're very valuable. And your value comes from your heart, your authenticity. And exactly that, it's you are actually far more nurturing when you learn to love yourself, because it is coming from a place, once again, of pure authenticity. The idea of self-sacrifice is often being portrayed as being admirable, but quite on the contrary, when we sacrifice ourselves, there's very little of ourselves to give to any cause. So to learn to break away from that concept and to go into a concept that's actually more aligned for you to be the best version, to be of service to those that you love, by putting boundaries, is a very big step forward on the road of self-recovery.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those that are in doubt of being all they want to become?
Um, just try. Be kind to yourself. Try not to listen to negative self-talk or negative talk from some people around you, because sometimes you find that as you become successful at losing weight or changing who you are, people around you become
Cynical.
uncomfortable,
Mm.
and then they aim to undermine because they need to make themselves feel better. So it's certainly around, don't listen to self-talk either by someone else or by yourself. um, and being kind, and if you fall, if you have a bad day, it's a bad day, not a bad life. So you just pick up yourself, and you, like when toddlers are learning to walk, they can go splat on the ground and
Yes.
they hurt themselves. But then 2 minutes later, they pick themselves off and off they go again. And I think you need to keep that in your mind, is that if you go splat, you just pick yourself up and you go again. And there will be potholes and there will be times, but you just keep going.
I think we can learn so much from children. They're far more wise than what we are. because they're more connected with the divine coming from it. It's such a recent occurrence. So a lot we can learn from kids. I think that is one of the most fundamental things we can learn from them, is the perseverance with which they have, and the eagerness in which they have to keep learning, the playfulness, right? That's what's so amazing about children, is that everything for them is such an experience because they're created to be so. And that's how we can take things that are tedious and create them into opportunities of wondrous experience. And I feel that's what you've done as well. You know, when you talk about your steps and the walking and how you've gone from barely doing 5,000 when we started just over a year ago to now smashing 10,000 steps before 7:30 a.m. in the morning. You know, you mentioned in other conversation that now you look for different routes and how you can get more steps. And on those journeys of those routes, you get to experience the glory of nature, the true essence of nature. Um, and that takes you out of the mindset of the ideas of man and puts you into the glory of the opportunities of which have been gifted to you to experience in this life by creation, God, divinity, the universe, whatever label people really want to give it. You're now experiencing life in the divine because of the subtleties of inspiration through imagination, the imagination of a child.
And not having limiting beliefs.
And that's been professed. Sorry.
You're like,
Hi, Joel. Sorry about the connection.
that's okay.
It's been professed so many times throughout history to have the imagination of a child. And I think that this is one of the reasons as to why it's so powerful to embrace that imagination, just from what you've done. Absolutely powerful. Jill, how do you believe autonomic coaching can be a catalyst to one's liberation of denial, of disbelief in health and heart?
Because the program is not purely based on health, it's based on science, and it's also based on spirituality. So everything's tailored to the person, and it's done at a pace that works with you, but you're nurtured as a whole person, both through science, through healthy habits, and spiritually. You find out things about yourself that maybe you didn't know or you didn't understand. And again, the old cliche of the journey has been, the catalyst that your company has provided me with.
And just to go to the point where you said my company, it started out that way, but now once again, it's become our family.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, sure, we've got to have the runnings of a business like everything else, but it's a very unique type of business, in that everybody that works in this business is actually friends, or some of them are actually family members too, actual family members. And I think that's what's so amazing, is that the connectivity that you have given us and allowed us to give you has truly allowed for the heart and the spiritual side of things to come into connection with the science. And when you combine those two, I mean, this is reason as to why you are now a hero. Not because you just do as you're told, as you always say, but because you feel and because you use your heart to do what is right, which resonates with you. Not what I say, but it resonates with you. And you brought yourself to that point, which is tough, but has been well worth it. And we still have many decades to go, to get you to being well over a century, to continue to profess this message of loving oneself, to break through disbelief.
Mhm. And with the help of my hero, who is Justin.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. I really do. It's like, if it hadn't been for people like yourself to give me purpose, I would also be a little bit lost in my life.
Mhm.
So one feeds the other, one soul feeds the other. And when we come together as a collective, we can do wondrous works, not just for each other, but for the world as a whole. So thank you.
Mhm.
Last question.
Yeah.
Who would you recommend autonomic coaching would be of best service to?
Absolutely anyone. Anyone who wants more out of their life, for their health, spiritually, physically, and no age limits. You know, you don't have to be 25 and the rest of your life in front of you. At any stage in your life, you can change the course that you were previously on and be successful. I'm living proof. I'm 63 years old and I've done this. This is the
How,
first time in my life I can say that I really feel that I've been successful. And I wouldn't be where I am without you.
thank you, Joel. Thank you, Joel. I I only have words of gratitude and thoughts and feelings of gratitude for your commitment and complete. I completely feel honored. I really do. I feel honored to have been able to be a part of your journey, to continue to be a part of your journey. It is an honor. You're a blessing to my life, to your family, and to everybody else that you are going to touch through your message. But thank you, Joel, for giving me a purpose and being able to help you to live up to your highest potential.
Thank you. As I said, you're my hero.
And so are you to all of us here too.
Mm.
Jill, with that, I'm going to end the storytelling session. Thank you once again for just giving your heart, your body, and your mind, and inevitably aligning your soul to the growth of which you have discovered. Thank you. Thank you for you. And I'm looking forward to the next, like I said, decades that we have ahead.
Absolutely, Justin. Um, it's the most amazing feeling to interact with you guys and to feel the support and the love every day. And it makes it possible to achieve what you thought was impossible.
Jill, you have a wonderful evening. Go get sleep now. You know what time it's there. It's almost bedtime. You're not supposed to go to bed after 10. So
It's only 11.
have a good night's rest, and I'll be speaking to you in the morning.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
hopefully I've given you enough.
You've given me more than enough. You've given me your heart. Thank you.